Ooh, previously on Implied Nerdity, Jared.
You gotta be real clueless when you get, like, these 5-word messages that are just, like, down for cyber. It's the year 2015. No one calls it cyber anymore.
That's how I open up every conversation.
I know. I wish you would stop.
Is that how you hit on girls at bars?
No, that's how he answers his phone. I'll call him to discuss the week's podcast, and he'll be like, down for cyber, and I'll be like, it's me, Jared.
And it'll be like, the question still stands, Justin.
Hey kids, welcome to another episode of Implied Nerdity. This week, the future and the past come crashing together when we cover topics ranging from the Hyperloop to where you can go to get the fastest broadband in America and how to watch all your favorite Nickelodeon shows that were airing in the 90s, plus a whole lot more. Jason is back this week, so the original crew is back together. Jared, Jason, Teresa, and me. If you've forgotten, we still have the Armada bookcast coming up pretty soon. If you do have questions or comments or things you want to share with us about the book, you can get us those emails still, but we ask that we get those in no later than September 28th. That way we have them in time to record the podcast and get it out to everybody on October 1st when we will announce the next book for the Book Club podcast. But that's about all I have this week, so enjoy the show.
So Nintendo has a new president that was finally named. What?
No, shut up, Jason. We're starting now.
Oh, man.
By the way, welcome back, Jason.
Yes, welcome back.
Hello.
It sounds like the Antarctic base got some grants. You don't sound as crappy as you did last week.
You know, we finally got a new radio in. It's top notch. It's all Donald Trump style. It's the most luxurious radio they could get us.
And it hates minorities and loves guns?
Ice Station Alpha is just me, so it's hard to have minorities when there's only one person.
You are the minority.
It just hates you. It's pretty
Exactly.
anti-Semitic.
You're still the minority even though you're by yourself.
Right.
Which makes you wonder,
by the
what
computer.
is the majority?
Anything else.
There's like 3 chairs, but only one me?
And they still outvote you in every election.
God damn it, chairs.
We've been eating a lot of chair food lately.
Like, there's this big stack of potatoes going bad. That's all I'm saying.
No, I can't get the chairs to vote for potatoes to save my life. Literally speaking.
Literally, all this wood isn't helping.
And again, what is chair food? I don't even know. They won't let me watch them eat.
They only move when I'm not looking.
There's the podcast.
Now, Jared, transition. Transition from that.
Jared, the master of segues.
Nintendo's new president has been named. He doesn't have anything in common with the Antarctic or chairs, but he's the new president of Nintendo. His name is Tatsumi Kimishima.
Well done.
And unfortunately, after the unfortunate passing of Satoru Iwata, they took a little bit of time before deciding who was going to step in. We got Tatsumi Kimishima. He was Nintendo of America's president from 2002 2006. He was the head of, I think he was one of the founders or one of the first presidents of Pokemon Go, or not Pokemon Go, the Pokemon Company.
He was the CFO of the Pokemon Company.
Oh, really? I thought he was the president for a little while as
No,
well. But
he might have been president for a while, but I know he was CFO.
oh,
All right, now, Cat, get out of here.
you can't be on the podcast.
Wait, so there's a cat and 3 chairs at Antarctic base?
It's not really a cat. There is no cat there.
There is no cat. It's just
It's been so long
chair.
since Jason's had
It's a
food
footstool.
Yeah. He's just kicking an ottoman away.
You guys are so mean.
Get out of here, cat. Me and the chairs are talking.
And because it's a smaller chair, the chairs don't mind that it gets pushed around. It's Jason, a recliner, a Barca-lounger, and a chaise lounge, and an ottoman doing research in the Antarctic.
and we zoom out, and it's the eye of Jack from Lost. Dun-dun-dun.
Holy
I
crap.
don't know why I thought
That
you
just
said the eye
got
of
deep.
Sauron.
I'd watch it.
What has he been doing since Lost is over? Nothing.
He punched a bus driver in Cleveland.
Nice.
He did that movie,
Cool.
Alex something.
Correct?
No, he didn't do the movie Alex Trebek. He did a movie Alex something, and it was him and I think Blair Underwood, and they filmed in Cleveland, and he was super wasted, and he got on this bus because he thought it was public transit, and it turned out it was a private rented bus, and the bus driver kicked him off, and he was like, "Don't you know who I am?" And he swung at the lady bus driver, and so the lady bus driver beat the shit out of him.
Amazing.
And
Yeah, don't
kicked
mess
him-
with a bus driver.
Kicked him off the bus.
Don't you know who I am? I was in Lost and literally nothing else that mattered.
He was also in Vantage Point.
Yeah, but what? He didn't do anything.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! He was the bad guy.
Then why'd you spoil that? What's the point of spoiling that?
I was definitely gonna go watch that.
Nobody was gonna go watch. Vantage Point.
Regardless,
Come on.
I mean, it didn't. Anyway, let's get back to it. Justin, you're the reason we're talking about this. It's all your fault. You wanted to bring up a specific
I'm the
reason
problem.
why. There's a specific reason why you want to talk about Kimishima being the new Kimishima, whatever, being the new head of presidents or whatever, head of presidents, head of Nintendo. I haven't slept much.
That is how important Nintendo is.
So one of a lot of the articles, not just one, but the one that we're looking at on Kotaku, they're all using the same picture of Tatsumi Kimishima, and he's very droll, and he's wearing a black suit, and he's just sitting there, and he doesn't look very happy.
It looks like
he
his
doesn't
son
look
just
droll
told
at
him he
all.
wants to be like a professional mime.
Yeah.
That's the face that I imagine.
Yeah, so and that's a picture that's been mostly used across all of the outlets that are covering this story, and it's actually from Bloomberg. It's a Getty image
Okay.
via Bloomberg, and I read an article, and it's frustrating because I can't remember where I read it, but it was this interesting article about how people were freaking out that this guy is the president of Nintendo because he doesn't seem to look like a very fun guy. He looks very dour and very serious, and that's not what Nintendo is about. And especially pairing that with his quote saying that this is going to lead into a next generation of collective leadership between him and Miyamoto and Takeda. And that the theme of this next generation will be new projects as well as nurturing talented people. So they see this picture of him looking very serious, and then he's talking about new projects at Nintendo, and everyone's freaking out and saying, oh no, what does this mean for Mario and Zelda and Kirby and so on and so forth. But if you look up this guy on like Google image search, there are plenty of photos of him super laid back and smiling. And if you read about him, he was the president of Nintendo America. He worked at the Pokemon Company. This is somebody who understands Nintendo and who has worked at Nintendo and is a good fit, especially considering that Miyamoto and Takeda are going to be there as the creative fellow for Miyamoto and the technology fellow for Takeda. And Takeda is the one who created the Wii, if people don't know. To have them at his side as in these fellowship roles, I think everything's going to be fine. But it was just a really interesting article about how, using this one picture, it's just, sort of the world's way of coping with Iwata being gone to, automatically paint the next president of Nintendo when it wasn't Shigeru Miyamoto, when it wasn't him, to just automatically paint this next random person as bad or incapable.
Well, he's not really a random person,
but
yeah,
random,
I know what you're
random
saying.
to the
Yeah.
world because
right,
he didn't.
He's not.
Yeah.
This is such like a non-issue. I don't like. It's one of those things where it's like it's a slow news day, so I guess we got to complain about something. But it's definitely not an issue because we're all used to Iwata, but the guy before him who basically put Nintendo on the map was Hiroshi Yamauchi, and he was notoriously one of the meanest guys at Nintendo. He was such a jerk from what everything that everyone said about him. But he put Nintendo on the map. Like if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have gotten to where they got to, before Iwata got in there. So I don't think the idea that he doesn't look nice like Iwata is not a problem. Sometimes you need a guy at the top who's basically going going to, actually run the business. And not that Iwata didn't run the business, but I mean, he's the president. He's not supposed to be everyone's friend. He's supposed to make sure that they stay financially solvent. That's what matters.
And I know that everybody, was like, well, Miyamoto, why is he not the president? But, I would think, at least from my perspective, like, you don't want him to be president. You want him to be concentrating on this creative stuff.
Right.
That's what he does best. And so if I want Nintendo to be creative and succeed, I don't want him having to deal with all of the other business minutia stuff that a president has to deal with. I think that what they did is brilliant. I think it's a great idea.
I mean, and I don't disagree. I mean, at first I was definitely a little upset to see that Miyamoto wasn't.
You were very upset.
President of Nintendo. But I don't feel like, because Iwata still had a lot of, not creative control, but creative involvement. And I think that he was still able to do his job as president and contribute creatively.
Oh yeah, I mean, he did a lot of incredible things. Even didn't he help, like, Pikmin was in a bad place and he like took the time to program something in there. Like, he came up from development, and like while he was president, I think he did some programming on Pikmin because they ran into trouble. I mean, he did that. What was that interview series he did? I can't remember.
I can't remember the name, but I know what you're talking about.
He took the time to interview different developers. He was a different personality that was out there doing a lot of stuff, and I think he was one of a kind. So the idea that you're going to bring around someone else who's going to be able to do that is just not a reasonable request.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know. My hesitation about him is that he's from HR, and he was the managing director, which means his focus is much more, up until now. I mean, I don't have his resume in front of me, but it seems like it's much more with the, yeah, right.
It sure sounds like you do, Jason.
Definitely not just an article from Kotaku. But I mean, it sounds like his focus up until now has been much more the like nuts and bolts, day-to-day operational, the business side, as opposed to the creative side. But just given the way, and that gives me pause at first because, gaming and all that is such an inherently creative business. But on the other hand, it seems like Nintendo's business strategy lately has been to kind of bank on, known big hits and just sort of run the business side super efficiently to, keep the profit margin high. So, I mean, I think I agree with Terry and with Jared. He's pretty much the perfect guy in that sense. The creative people are left to just be creative, and, you can trust him to have his eye on the ball as far as it goes to the day-to-day business stuff.
I'm kind of excited for the sort of nebulous concept of new projects. I mean,
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo does Nintendo very well. Pokemon, Mario and all that kind of stuff. But the idea of Nintendo coming out with a new project, a new property, I
probably wouldn't I wouldn't take that too far, because I doubt probably when they mean new projects, they're talking about like putting our games that already exist on mobile or working on our next, console.
It's true. They don't necessarily mean new IP.
I know, but it would be exciting, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything Nintendo does is impressive.
I would love for it to be something like what the Xbox has done with, indie developers and smaller games, just putting them on the, on the market and treating them equal to the developer,
Speaking
AAA
of
kind of titles.
Xbox Live's Indie Arcade shut down this week, so...
It did?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I've only really been looking at the Xbox One, where they've just been putting all those games into the general store with the other games.
Yeah, the Indie Arcade thing they did before was just like, hey, anyone can upload your XNA garbage to this. So it wasn't really like...
That's why it was like 30 billion Avatar games.
Oh my god, Shark Attack Deathmatch, though. That game was one of those games, and it was some of the most fun I had on my 360.
I don't know. Nothing really compares to Merv Griffin's crosswords.
But you can't be murdered by sharks in Merv Griffin's crosswords.
Jason, we don't know that for a fact. We never did get enough people to play.
Hard enough.
On a long enough timeline, if there's a chance.
Yeah, it can happen. Right. We would just have to get more people to buy it.
I knew someone that had it.
No.
That wasn't me or Justin?
I did. I actually.
What a crazy statement. I knew someone that had this one game.
No, I did. Justin maintains that no one else had it, but an ex-boyfriend of mine used to play this game.
But the only reason I doubt it is because Jason and I would spend like an hour in the multiplayer lobby waiting for someone to wander in by accident.
Making us sound like child molesters.
You ever see one of those sitcoms where it's like two people are locked in a basement and they're trying to get out, and then like person 3 opens the door and goes, "Oh, hey guys," and then like the people scream, "Don't shut the door!" And then that was like Jason and I. We would be sitting in the multiplayer lobby, and if somebody were to wander, we'd be like, "Oh my god, you're," and then they would just log off because they'd be so afraid.
That's like one of the nerdiest things I've ever heard.
Oh, this is the wrong game.
Like you ever sit in? Have you ever spent an hour waiting in an online crossword puzzle game lobby? Nope.
You've never played this game.
You've never lived, Jared. You've never lived.
I haven't.
I mean, I'm gonna dispute Justin's memory that it was an hour. I think we waited at most like 5 minutes, but point remains, we waited.
I think it's
for
important
people to come online.
The important point here is we waited 5 minutes.
Right.
Then I waited another 55.
Right. I was like, well, I got other things to do. And Justin was like, I don't.
Justin's still waiting.
Yeah.
I haven't. My Xbox 360 is just running in Cleveland. Jason, sing the theme song.
Oh, I don't remember. Here we go right into the O. That's
yeah, that was it.
Not
that was
even
the
the real
whole song.
words from the song.
What?
That was the whole theme song.
That was words Justin made up for part of the... This is the worst transition ever to the next news story, by the way.
Speaking of being depressed, Nintendo...
I was going to say, speaking of things that make Jared sad...
Nintendo might delete your Mario Maker course if they don't like it, or, well, I guess if people don't like it and they're not playing it. And but if Nintendo likes it, they might use it to make some money off of it.
And
so,
you won't.
That's true. So basically, Mario Maker, that came out recently on the Wii U, and users can make their own levels and upload them to like a community website and stuff. And if you have a level that people aren't playing or people don't like it and it's just not getting a lot of traction in the community, eventually Nintendo just might completely delete it. Meaning I think you can keep the game locally on your system, but as far as it being uploaded, it's gone. And you might not even know about it, and no one gets to see it, and you just have to re-upload it, I guess. But also, if Nintendo likes it and they decide to continue to use it in some capacity and to make money off of that level that you made, then you won't see any of that money, but they profit from it. And that's part of the on-screen what do you call it? Like kind of terms of service notices or whatever that you have to agree to when starting up the game.
I mean, it feels kind of crappy, but in today's digital age,
it didn't surprise me.
I wasn't surprised that they're doing that. The courses with low popularity thing, I mean, it's still pretty new, so I wonder how they're gonna judge like what score does it have to get in what amount of time for it to be reasonable to be like, okay, this clearly isn't doing the trick, we're just gonna delete this. But it doesn't.
Maybe if people haven't played it for so much, so many days or something like that, it might get deleted.
I mean, it makes sense though because it's all being stored on a server. You can't expect Nintendo to maintain unlimited bandwidth so that you can just bog down the server with crap courses.
Well, there's a difference between bandwidth and server space, though.
Well, I mean, server space, yeah.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I don't know. The part about I agree about that, and one of the big problems with like online marketplaces and things like that, like the Android store even, is just not clearing out the dregs. But the second part of it, where Nintendo can keep all of these user created levels and use them for anything they want, I mean, means that for the next, decade of Mario games, they could just go into Mario Maker and dredge up their favorite levels and just recycle those.
And you didn't think that was partly the point?
Yeah, right?
I mean,
I don't know. Nintendo has always been pretty good at creating their own stuff. I mean, I can't really think of a time
That's true.
where Nintendo has stolen anything from anyone. I could be wrong. I'm just saying I don't remember a time that they.
Well,
they
that's
ever
just
did
because
that.
they are the only ones that make what they make, which helps. But now they've opened it up and allowed other people to make their stuff. But I think the article that we read, did make sense. They did make sense of this, saying, technically what Nintendo's doing here is sharing their game architecture with you. You're buying for $30-$40 a license to use what they use to make old Mario games. So if they want it's their proprietary software. If they want to, if you agree to these terms of service, then that's how it goes. But I think the bigger question, and maybe it's just me because I don't like games like Minecraft and I never really got into SimCity or anything like that. I don't understand the appeal of Super Mario Maker. Like, maybe I would get it to play the levels that other people make, but I don't have the patience. I guess I lack the creativity.
What are you talking about? You, on Halo, spent forever making a level.
Yeah, but what level did I make? I tried to recreate a level that was already designed in something else.
Well,
All I did was
try creative. I'm just saying that you do spend the time.
It's just one of those things. I just, I tried it and then I got bored. But luckily, there's a bunch of other things you can do in Halo. There's you either build levels or you play levels, and I don't want to spend full price for a game that I'm only going to use half of. So, I mean...
then you're not the game's audience.
Yeah. Well, even so, like I'm going to get Mario Maker just to play other people's levels, and there's going to be a plethora of those. I mean, people are going crazy making levels. So I think that, I'm not part of the audience either that wants to create this stuff, but... I definitely want to play other people's stuff. I mean, why not? Well, that's free extra Mario content.
It's not technically free.
Oh, it's free after you pay the introductory price.
Yeah. But the other thing is, I wonder how this popularity thing really is going to be measured, because some of the levels that are getting the most popularity, talked about on the internet, and I would assume then, therefore, being played by a lot of people after reading about them, are levels that are made, I guess there was a series of really depressing levels that were made. The one that I saw a video of was called it's called My Wife. And then when you play it, it's like a box of coins that you can't get.
Spoiler alert.
And you run, it's like a 2-second level. You run from left to right, and that box of coins in large letters spells out, "My wife left me."
That's depressing.
And that's the end of the level.
That's great.
Oh, I hope Nintendo purges that one.
No, I hope it steals it for its next game.
Yes.
Put that in the next
that's
Mario.
How it starts. That's how it starts. Mario's like, "Where's Peach?"
Yeah.
Peach never existed.
Ooh.
Mario's in the Antarctic talking to chairs.
Oh, and kicking an ottoman.
And he keeps losing votes to them.
God damn it.
So, speaking of something, I'm bad at these. You guys are better.
Speaking of using some stuff.
Oh, speaking of using stuff somebody else made.
Yep.
Obviously. God.
God, Jason. Bad. The chair is
How did
displeased.
I not think of that? So we talked. All right. So doing a real introduction of this topic, I guess. So we talked about copyright a little couple weeks ago.
And we've talked about
We've
copyright.
talked about one copyright issue the last 3 podcasts in a row.
Well, brilliant.
I don't know about that.
So that copyright issue yet again. I mean, what I remember talking about was the YouTube's new gaming channel and how they were trying to compete with Twitch, but they ended up doing unfortunate things like just flat out shutting off people's streams in the middle because YouTube Gaming has this program built in that automatically shuts down streams and removes videos from the internet where it detects any kind of copyrighted content. And this could even be a copyrighted rock song that plays in the game that you are playing. So an appellate court, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, recently ruled in a case where a woman put a video of her toddler on the internet, and that in that video her toddler was dancing to a copyrighted song.
By Prince.
And by Prince, no less. And so the the people who own the copyright put up a DMCA notice and had the video taken down.
What's the
and
DMCA
the woman,
for our listeners?
Oh, sorry, that's the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which is the act that controls the way copyrighted, it's the law that controls the way copyrighted content is treated on the internet. And that is, for example, when somebody, records Saturday Night Live by pointing their camera at the TV and tries to put it on YouTube, that's the law that NBC uses to have it taken down.
Which is really unfair because that's great YouTube content, guys. Come on. We need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Universal, who owns this Prince song, puts up the DMCA notice, has the video taken off of, I think it was YouTube. But the woman was represented by an advocacy group who wanted to take up her case, and they sued, and they got the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to hold that companies can't just put out blanket DMCA notices, but they have to actually stop and consider whether a use of the copyright is fair use or not before they issue a DMCA notice. Which means basically that the company trying to take your content off the internet actually has to show in court that they stopped and thought about whether it was legal for you to use it before they try to make you stop using it. Doesn't seem like a bad thing to me.
No, it's just interesting because we had the whole Kleenex tissue issue and tissue issue. And then we had the YouTube issue, and then last week was the Getty Images issue. So we've had a lot of copyright stories come up in the past couple weeks on the podcast. So this is
I think it's important. I think it affects a lot of. I mean, it affects what we do, and I think it affects a lot of. In today's world, where everybody's using YouTube for whatever dumb stuff they want to put up, your stuff is dumb, everyone.
Everything on the internet but this podcast is dumb.
Yeah, I think this stuff is important. It does affect everyone, and in this in this particular article by Ars Technica that we're looking at, the title says appeals court strikes a blow for fair use and long-awaited copyright ruling. But I feel like the ruling of it doesn't actually make that much of a difference. Now, maybe I don't.
Not for YouTubers, really. Not for the same people.
I think it makes a huge difference.
But not for the people that would have been affected by the. Because really, all it says is that you have to offer up some kind of proof that the person issuing the takedown notice has taken fair use into consideration. But
that's like nothing. Like that's almost like trying to prove an intangible at that point, where it's like, we considered it. We waited a day before we took it down. Law. Okay, sure.
But think about it this way, though. YouTube Gaming's program where it automatically cuts off your feed if it detects copyrighted material. I mean, arguably, this ruling makes that system completely illegal because it's automatic.
Except for the fact that the judges said in the decision that computer-driven copyright policing could be the solution. Policing? Oh, I thought I said... Policing? Okay, anyway. Computer-driven copyright policy... Damn it! Policing. No. I think that... I mean, that basically... They basically just said that that's, good. They like that. We note without passing judgment that the implementation of computer algorithms appears to be a valid and good faith middle ground for processing, these kinds of things while meeting the DMCA's requirements to somehow consider fair use. So what they're saying is that these existing YouTube, takedowns, the assumption is that they're programmed to take fair use into consideration, and if they're cutting you off, it's because you violated the computer's understanding of fair use, and that's all that has to happen. The computer just has to understand what fair use is, and according to this decision, that's enough. So the majority opinion says, that Universal needs to prove that they took fair use into account, and if they can't, then this woman wins. You know, despite this being all a ridiculous posturing case just to punish one person publicly to let everyone know what the story is, especially since it's just a baby dancing to friggin' music and she didn't make any money off of it, assumedly. But that,
well, she wasn't sued by Universal. I thought it was the Electronic Frontier Foundation brought suit against Universal on her behalf.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, you know, what there's really, Universal doesn't benefit from winning this case necessarily. It
to
just
some
makes
extent
an
they
example.
do, because there's a part about, and I can't remember what it's, but they have to pay out, still subject to, where is it? Isn't there some type of payout that has to happen?
No, they said that there could be nominal damages, but they wouldn't be much, because as soon as the video was taken down, she put it right back up, and it's been up ever since.
I mean, so regardless of that, I don't think this is a blow. Like, why did you think this was a blow against the DMCA takedowns, Jason?
Oh, I mean, just just in general, the legal principle that, you know, these companies can't just take everything down. You know, they have to prove that they're thinking about the law a little bit, that they're not just trying to bully people out of using their content. And I mean, I guess, you know, the automatic systems are mostly used by the intermediaries. You know, it's not that Universal necessarily, well, I guess they probably do, and that's where this came from. I don't know. I mean, I think that the sort of saying, on the one hand, you have to prove you took this complicated legal analysis into consideration, but on the other hand, it's cool to let a computer algorithm take care of all of it. It doesn't seem entirely consistent to me.
But, like, what does that even mean, though? Like, take it into consideration. Like, they don't outline what that even means. So it's like,
well, they
so
kinda
it means
do.
that, for example, if I'm Universal and I have told you to I have taken down your dancing baby video, and you sue me, we come into court, I need to show that, you know, I have a corporate policy written somewhere about how to analyze, you know, copyright violations, and that policy includes something about, you know, fair use, that the people who analyze copyright issues are trained in what fair use means, things like that. I mean, that's something that's going to have to be figured out over years of litigation, as, you know, people figure out what proof is enough, what proof isn't enough. You know, this one case isn't going to solve all of that.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't think it's that big of a blow, is my point. Like, I don't think it's enough to where they're like, oh, crap. Like, they're still going to, okay, we'll just make
it's
it this
definitely
checklist
not
or
gonna
whatever we
change.
have to do.
I mean, I agree with you. It's not going to change anything overnight. It just sort of reaffirms the general rule that, like, fair use is a thing that the courts are going to take seriously.
And it's such a complicated concept, because even when they try to explain it in the article, you know, the consideration doesn't have to be searching or intensive, but it can't be trivial. You can't just pay lip service to fair use, and it delves into the concepts of good faith and all this, and it's a very dark, deep hole of legalese and stuff that you really gotta pick apart. And Jason's right. It's going to take more than just this case to ultimately define what a company has to do. But at the same time, I mean, I don't disagree. It's good that this stuff is being brought into the legal light, because, you know, it's going to make it little by little more difficult for companies to just rip your content off the internet.
Well, and just in case our listeners aren't 100% aware, so fair use is an exception to copyright rules that covers things like academic uses of copyrighted materials or parodies. You know, when the Daily Show runs clips from Fox News, they don't have to play Fox News for them because they're using them for parody purposes. They're not just replaying them to make money off of them.
Yeah. Or like the way Weird Al makes most of his songs.
Right. Parodies are fair use. You're repurposing it into something that is new and your own.
And just real quick, the last point I wanted to, I agree that's good that we're talking about this and we're getting the ball rolling on this stuff, but I think there's a lot of outlets out there like cheering this on, like, oh, we just dealt a huge blow. It's like, not really. Like, yeah, we've started the process of talking about it. I guess you could say in a legal sense, but it's not like things haven't drastically changed for the better in favor of people, creating this content.
Oh, totally not. I think, well, I mean, accurate headlines hardly ever sound as good, but I think a more accurate headline would be, decades-long legal battle over what fair use means on the internet begins.
Yeah.
Expect nothing interesting from this article.
Right.
Or follow-up articles for kind of a while.
Well, I mean, I guess it's good in that the court didn't say, meh, if it's on the internet, the company can do whatever they want, and who cares? Who cares about your baby video?
Yeah, screw you and your baby video. And speaking of getting screwed, you ever give money to a Kickstarter that never actually delivered on anything? Well, some people did.
No, because I've never given money to Kickstarter.
Yeah, me either. Well, no, I have, but I only give to good projects.
Me neither.
Basically, I'm smarter than these people.
That's sort of the theme of this podcast. Jason talks to chairs, and Jared thinks everyone is dumb.
Yeah, well, that's just a fact. Especially kids. So a Washington court just fined a company called Altius Management, I don't know, for never delivering on its Kickstarter for a set of playing cards that had like a retro horror theme to it. The company raised $25,000 to produce a series of playing cards, and now it's on the line for more than $50,000 in fines and repayments for not delivering on any of those promises from the Kickstarter.
I'm surprised on one side, I'm like, good, because, you can't screw somebody over in Kickstarter and not deliver. But then on the flip side, I'm surprised that they can do this, because I thought that, like, part of the terms of service on Kickstarter is basically saying that, you're funding a project that may or may not happen. If it does reach its, fully expected total of fundraising.
Well, but from what I understood from the article, part of the problem, was that in this particular case, they just stopped communicating. It wasn't even like they were communicating with their funders and then they were like, oh, sorry, things have gone under, whatever, blah, 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 thank you so much. They just were sort of like,
So then the question is, if this Ed Nash guy, who was the leader of Altius Management, if he had just said, hey, listen, we're really sorry, it didn't work out, we're not going to be able to give you your I don't know why I almost called them push presents. We're not going to be able to give you your tiered, presents and that kind of stuff, and we're not going to be able to come out with the cards because of some reason. Would that have absolved him from legal responsibility? Because I feel like that's the inherent risk of a Kickstarter. You're investing.
I mean, is there legal responsibility? That's my question. Like, isn't Kickstarter?
They're saying
it's like a donation.
But that's what they're saying. They're saying that if you accept money from customers and don't follow through on your obligations, my office will hold you accountable. But the question is, I just feel like Kickstarter has to have a terms of service that would prevent this kind of thing from happening. Because Kickstarter does largely stay uninvolved. They take their cut of the money that you raise, and they just provide the middle ground to do your fundraising. But I feel like there has to be something built into their legalese that says, hey, some kind of boilerplate form that says, hey, you join this website with the understanding that you're contributing to these projects, and that in doing so, there's the risk that if they don't make their goal, you don't owe anything. But if they do, then your money is their money. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
And also, don't give $25,000 to a deck of cards. What's your problem?
Yeah. Right.
Well, did this make it, did this fulfill its funding goal? And
yes.
then just nothing happened?
800 people donated money to the project. The cards were never made. The company and its leaders sent vague messages to their backers and then stopped communicating entirely in 2013.
So my thought on the legality of it, just based on, I don't do this kind of law, but based on, having gone to law school, I guess if the agreement is you pay us this money, and if we make our goal, we will try our best to make this awesome effing deck of playing cards. So, as long as they try to, if it turns out their business plan wasn't realistic or something like that, too bad. But, pretty much always in the law, if you make an agreement with something, but you never intended on actually following through with that, you can't do that.
Yeah, but how would they prove that?
Well, that is, I mean, that's a really difficult thing to prove. I mean, probably circumstantial evidence, showing that they never hired an artist, showing that they never, contacted, printers or anything like that, that they just soaked up money and produced good PR stuff, but never, made any steps to actually make the cards.
I mean, isn't it, if it's a donation, does it really matter at that point? Like, I don't know the legality of it all, but like, if they're just donating the money.
Well, I imagine, and again, I don't know the legality of it either, but I imagine that it's a little bit different when it comes to Kickstarter because it's a donation, but it's like the donations are sort of like purchases almost, in that they do have those gifts that you get. So like you are making a purchase.
The push presents.
I feel like it's more that it's like, if this happens, you're right, actually, because either way amounts. They have to deliver on those extras. I think that's right. I'm pretty sure that's part of Kickstarter's agreement, is that you have to deliver on your tiers, if nothing else.
But
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure
so you don't have to make your end. Well, what if the tier is you get a copy of
exactly. Because how many games do that, where it's like, if you donate $25, we'll give you a copy of the game when it comes out. Well, if you never make the end product, how do you fulfill? And then like each tier above that is like the 3 tiers below plus this, the 4 tiers below plus this. So eventually you hit this wall where if tier 2 and 3 never happen, how can 4, 5, and I don't know. It's one of those things for me that sits on both sides of the fence. I'm really glad to see if this was truly a shitty company doing a shitty thing to people. I'm glad to see them have to pay the price. But on the other side, I'm not entirely certain that this is something a court can do given the nature of crowdfunding. Because now, supposedly,
it all depends on what the terms of service are. And I don't
none
care
of us
enough
know.
to read them.
Yeah, none of us know what the terms of service for Kickstarter are.
I mean, I think the good thing is that, at least now people who go on Kickstarter know there is some sort of accountability. Like, it's not just, do whatever you want, take the money, and peace out.
Right.
And you have to at least communicate.
Right. Well, I'm worried about this being taken too far, because I kind of like Kickstarter and internet platforms like that being a little more risky, a little more Wild West. Like, you're giving your money to some genius working out of his garage. Maybe it's going to be awesome. Maybe he's crazy and he can't actually make what he's trying to make. You shouldn't be able to sue him just because he dreamed too big. But I think
that would be a very different case than like some playing cards. I think a judge wouldn't be like, "Oh, you gave money to someone who said that they could make a teleporter and they can't do it. Well, he's shitty and he has to give you your money back." But like, you can make a fucking deck of cards. Like, cut out some goddamn notebook paper and draw stuff on it and send it. Come on.
No, not with only $25,000. They can't. That's not enough.
Well, and I gotta be honest, knowing that, like, if I give money to a Kickstarter and it turns out the Kickstarter was a scam that only existed to get money off of Kickstarter, that I can get my money back, like, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
But we don't know if this was actually a scam. Like, the problem I have with this is...
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, the problem I have is, like, I feel like this opens the door to other litigation where it's like, oh, well, they said there was going to be, like, this particular platform in this game, but it wasn't there. I want all my money back. And it's, I feel like not to get political, but I don't think the government should be stepping into something like this. It should be, the onus should be on the creators of the Kickstarter and Kickstarter themselves to kind of work this out. But then how
do you enforce it if somebody doesn't, make
I don't know, just put something like Justin said, put on their website, like, this is a donation. Like, just put it in plain letters, like, if things don't work out, like, you donate at your own discretion. Yeah, this is not something that's going to be, in any way covered by the government or by Kickstarter. This is something that you are making your own. And then at that point, it makes the creators of the Kickstarter work harder to prove, like, hey, we're legitimate. Hey, we're going to take these steps to prove to you that we're using this money in the right way, or something like that. It makes them work harder. And the people can be more responsible with their money. It's
interesting, though. I think it's an interesting intersection of, like, the internet is sort of like an intellectual property Wild West where, I've said that twice now, but, like, where there are very few
I love that
rules.
idea, though.
I like it too. I mean, it's an amazing generator of new ideas, but the law has to catch up, and the law says that any oral promise you make to another person, as long as it fits a couple conditions, is legally binding. Believe it or not, most contracts don't even have to be written down. Just having it written down makes it easier to prove you had a contract.
I'm looking at the actual Kickstarter right now for these cards.
Doing research, boo.
And
no, we don't
first
do that
of
here.
all,
Just get out.
First of all, okay,
you're the problem.
This is a place for idle speculation.
First of all,
I have something to say about Halo and Mario.
About Halo and Mario and copyright.
And Madden.
So first of all, the first thing that showed up in on the screen was the brief description of what this is. And it says, from the dark and twisted mind of a Serbian artist, a retro horror themed playing card deck printed by Bicycle and only available here. So the fact that you didn't even name your artist, it's just the sick and twisted mind of a Serbian artist. That seemed a little weird to
Serbians
me.
Are messed
well, Serbians
up.
are the most twisted,
Secondly, if you scroll down the page, they actually do show the design for how they're going to make the box of playing cards, as if it was actually submitted. It says the United States Playing Card Company printed side. It's got all this, measurements, and it's got the 4-color code and the barcodes and everything else. So that makes it seem pretty legitimate. But then the other thing is that the rewards, the tiers for backing the project, literally are all based on a certain quantity of these decks of cards. So if the cards were not made, there is absolutely no way they could have delivered them. The bottom line reward tier for $9 or more pledged is a deck with free shipping. And then it goes 2 decks, and then it goes art plus 2 decks, and then a deck and an uncut sheet of all 56 cards. So there's no way they could have delivered on them if they fell through. But then to the effect that it's sort of bullshitty, looking at the card designs, the only cards that are uniquely designed are the aces, which is a stretch, and the court cards, the Jack, Queen, King. All the other cards are the spades are spades, the diamonds are diamonds, clubs and hearts.
Kind of smudgy.
They're kind of smudgy, little creepy, and the backs of the cards, all 52 cards, have the same exact design on the back. So
ooh, that sounds spooky.
So it's
it's from a crazy Serbian, Jared. Yeah. Of course it's spooky.
So it's just it seems legitimate enough that I don't believe that this, necessarily felt like it was a scam and that it was never going to happen. But then at the same time, it's hard for me to say, why didn't this happen? Because the amount of work that had to have gone into it could not have been much. And if they already had approval from Bicycle, which is one of the major, Hoyle and Bicycle are the 2 major playing card companies, what could have possibly prevented this from happening?
Well, it's saying that it's printed on Bicycle paper stock. It's not saying that Bicycle is printing it. But, I don't know. I mean,
so hold on. I'm sorry, just real quick, was the point of going through that just to see what it was they were selling, or to see whether it was so obvious it was a fraud that we're just going to make fun of anyone who gave them money?
It wasn't even a goal to make fun of. I just wanted to see what we were looking at. Gotcha. I just wanted to, and I wanted.
My goal is to make fun of them, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
sorry,
here's the
go
thing.
ahead, Terry.
So if I was looking at this and trying to think of why it would fall through, my guess is that it's an American management company dealing with a Serbian artist, and something went wrong there, and then that's why they couldn't print it. Or also maybe they said that they were going to use Bicycle and they couldn't do it or something. I don't know, but I mean it's not is this a Kickstarter that I would fund? No, I think it looks silly, but it doesn't necessarily when I look at it ping wow, this is super fake. You're trying to steal my money.
Yeah, I think it looks totally legit, but I think coming back to who should the court step in or not, I feel anything could happen. I don't think they tried to cut and run with the money. Who knows what happened behind the scenes that they couldn't make this. Sometimes the fact that they have to pay double the amount of money, I think, is kind of crazy. Why can't they just pay the exact amount of money back or whatever? Like, why does it have to be double the amount of money? Like, everyone has like some emotional hurt because of this that needs to be paid back. Double
Jared, my $9 was invested in a dream to own these cards. Okay?
But now here's 18 because your feelings are hurt or something.
My feelings are also worth an extra $9.
I just found what the terms of use are for Kickstarter when this kind of thing happens. And it says when a project is successfully funded, the creator must complete the project and fulfill each reward.
That's bolded, by the way.
Once a creator has done so, they've satisfied their obligation to the backers. And if they are unable to do this, they've failed to live up to the basic obligations of this agreement. And to write this, they must make every reasonable effort to find another way of bringing the project to the best possible conclusion. And a creator in this position has only remedied the situation and met their obligations to backers if they can show basically what work has been done, how the funds were used, and what is preventing them from finishing the project. Or they can at least demonstrate they've used the funds appropriately, they've been honest and made no misrepresentations. And most importantly, they offer to return any remaining funds to backers who have not received their reward in proportion to the amounts pledged, or else explain how those funds will be used to complete the project in some alternate form. So I'm with Jared in saying, now this guy might have been kind of shitty and not communicating well with people, but if he promised to pay back exactly what was given to him, or if he could at least display that the money was used appropriately, there's no reason that he should be fined an additional $25,000 for failing to complete the project.
So I'm looking at the actual court order with the findings of fact. And, okay.
We don't want facts.
Well, so according to the court found that these altless people, or whatever,
Altius?
Yeah. Interesting. So I don't
How
think...
about you share it with... Would you like to share that with the rest of the class, Mr. Paris?
So they didn't specifically find... It doesn't look like they specifically found that they purposefully set out to, not fulfill their campaign. Just that they didn't. And I guess through the Kickstarter, I'm not reading everything, but apparently...
What's a Kickstarter?
So under the State Consumer Protection Act, apparently the judge decided that doing the Kickstarter and taking the money and then doing apparently nothing to fulfill the Kickstarter is a violation of the Consumer Protection Act.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason that they took in $25,000, but they have to pay out $50,000 is that the court ordered them to pay everybody back. So that's $25,000, and then also ordered them to pay fines under the Consumer Protection Act, and also ordered them to pay attorney's fees for the people who sued them.
And was it a tort case? Like, was it a bunch of people?
Let me see. It looks like it was filed by the Attorney General on behalf of so as one lawsuit filed by the state of Washington on behalf of the 800 some people who paid into the Kickstarter.
Well, I think that if that's the case, if the extra $25,000 just happens to be fees and fines and stuff like that, then that is what it is, court fines are court fines. But I was just thinking if it was that they were doubling the fine to double the fine, and
no,
as long as they're sticking to the terms of service and that he's being forced by the law to pay the funds back to the backers, then I don't think. Well,
he's being forced by the law to do what he signed up and agreed to do.
That's less of a big deal than I thought it was, I guess.
Well, the moral of the story is don't do a Kickstarter in Washington. So you can avoid that.
Do a Kickstarter that is reasonable and you actually think you could complete.
Which is apparently not.
Well, I think they did. I'm sure they did starting out, though. I'm sure most people do, but I don't know. We should move on to other news that has nothing to do with Kickstarter.
I'm just saying, you got to be some real monsters to take advantage of people like that.
That's probably true. Anyway, moving on to another subject.
Really?
Yeah, I know. That's the point of the joke. Anyway, so Nickelodeon is launching a channel dedicated to 90s TV shows.
Yep.
That's kind of all there is to know. There's not really a lot to get into it. It has a very cool name, a very Nickelodeon name. It's called The Splat. So, and it's going to have shows like Doug, Ren and Stimpy, Rugrats, and a bunch of other 90s related television shows. And we don't know too much about it yet because they just kind of said, hey, it's going to exist, but they haven't really gotten to the details of how it's going to be available other than it's going to be an actual TV channel.
But I think this is important for two reasons. Primarily and most importantly, Jared, I think you need to tell the world your fondness for the cartoon show Doug.
I like it. You know, Quailman, that's an interesting superhero.
and perhaps your fondness for Doug's love interest, Patty Mayonnaise.
Patty Mayonnaise is a nice lady. Unfortunately, her and Doug never get together. Sorry, spoilers. Doug's too much of a coward, but she's a very nice lady.
And she's very, I would say she's close to your heart, but she's actually a little further away. Where is she closer to you?
Well, I mean, mostly in my eyeballs because I've watched her and listened to her, like in my ears. So, you know, me and Patty go way back. She's into the beats. I'm into the beats. You know, killer tofu and all that stuff. I need more allowance. All that junk. Yeah, me and Patty go way back.
So she's closer to your junk. That would be a little bit more accurate.
Oh my God.
Well, I don't know about that.
I know what you're going for, and I'm like...
Clearly, we're not going to get Jared to admit to the fact that he has...
Radio edit.
He's the one who edits the podcast, Justin.
You know, that's fine. If he edits it out, he edits it out. But I think it was an important fact. And
yeah, just for full disclosure, so people know my bias here, I do have a
radio edit.
I think more importantly, I think that this is a good example of doing nostalgia correctly, because I know we talked about that a while ago. And I think that if you're gonna play into the nostalgia factor for, you know, 90s kids and for people who are fond of these shows, it's better to do something like this, to do the kind of Nick at Night or TV Land sort of approach than to do, you know, like bringing a show back and rebooting it and recasting it, and, or, you know, like they did with Dexter's Lab, or they're doing with the Powerpuff Girls. You know, what
did they do with Dexter's Lab and the Powerpuff Girls?
So Dexter's Lab went off the air in the late 90s, right, and they rebooted it and brought it back in the early 2000s with a new artist and new people doing the voices.
Oh.
And it lasted, I think, 1 or 2 seasons. It was more or less an abject failure. And the Powerpuff Girls are getting rebooted either later, like towards the end of this year or mid next year, but they're being rebooted as well. But again, not by the same people who did it the first time. I think the voice actors are the same, but the production company and I believe the artists are different.
I hate reboots. I'm just gonna come out and say that. I really just hate reboots generally. So
I think if you're gonna do that kind of thing, to do it like this is the best way to do it. Just say, okay, you guys want Hey Arnold and Rugrats and Doug and Real Monsters. You want all that and Rocko's Modern Life. We're just going to give you that and we'll just run it. And they also said it's, I believe.
Except they did it on traditional television, which is the problem.
Well, you know, a lot of that's, you know, I think if it takes off, they'll move that stuff to, it's tough because it's all licensing, like Viacom and that kind of stuff would end up on Hulu, and you'd have to end up paying for Hulu Plus. And, you know, I can't all go on Netflix, and I think it's a step in the right direction.
I wasn't suggesting that. I was just saying, give us a way to easily buy it or access it in some other fashion.
Yeah, like maybe like an Apple TV channel or like an HBO Go kind of thing where you can just pay for a monthly fee and access it anywhere you go. That makes sense. But they also, I believe, they said it's not just limited to the cartoons. So that'd be really cool if it was also like, you know, Salute Your Shorts and Hey Dude.
Yes,
and
Hey Dude.
Episodes of Legends of the Hidden Temple. You know, if you could do all that
Nick
too.
Arcade.
Nick Arcade, Clarissa. We should just see how many 90s kids Nickelodeon shows we could mention at once.
Was You Can't Do That on Television? Was that on Nickelodeon?
Yeah. It was. You Can't Do That on Television. Wild and Crazy Kids. Clarissa Explains It All.
Said it. Nah.
Yeah,
Oh
we
my
said that
gosh,
once.
you can't do that on television. Please bring that back.
That'd be awesome.
Please?
Roundhouse was one. All that.
Roundhouse.
Speaking of all that, Kel Mitchell is back on TV.
Hasn't he been on Saturday Night Live, or was he off of
That
Saturday
was
Night
Keenan.
Live?
That's Keenan Thompson, and you're
Oh,
a
goddamn.
racist bastard.
I heard the implication in there.
Oh, Kel is back on TV finally? I always thought he was the funnier of the two.
That's because he was, but it sort of feels, if you look up the new
Maybe
show he's in,
'cause Keenan had to play the straight man, but
it's really an uncomfortable role. Like, the whole
What's he
concept of
doing?
the show,
Pizza face from all that?
I wish. No, the whole concept is that there's these three kids who design they're in like 5th or 6th grade, and they design a video game for a school project, and it becomes super popular and makes tons of money. So I don't know if they drop out of school or what, but they basically open up their own video game studio. And Kel's character comes into it where they use a rap song in one of their games. Hey, it's fair use, actually, so it relates. And apparently they didn't pay him for his song, and so he comes after them for the money for using his song. But his character is just
quick note, that is not fair use, and his character is probably doing the legally correct thing.
Thank you. But
Yeah.
the thing is, he's just supposed to be this very stereotypical rapper. It's just really, like, I watched it and it's uncomfortable, and it's Kel trying to be Kel for a generation who has no idea who Kel Mitchell is. It was a weird preview. Like, I got excited to see he was coming back to TV, and then I realized why he should have just stayed away.
Well, look, okay, so kind of related to that, but more related to the whole nostalgia and the fact that I think that this, Splat is doing it correctly. We've definitely discussed Girl Meets World and our issues with that. And
Which
so
is
I
everything.
feel like, which is all of them. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I have all of the issues. With that and with Fuller House. And I feel like when you're playing into 90s nostalgia, the only way other than this that I've seen that worked, which really surprised me, is the ABC Family show Melissa and Joey, which is just like a sitcom where they were like, hey, Melissa Joan Hart and Joey Lawrence, you guys were 90s teen idols, so we're gonna make a
I was just about to do the same thing.
we're gonna make a sitcom where we like you have nothing to do with any characters you ever played except for like in one weird Halloween special, but people are going to watch it because you're Melissa Joan Hart and Joey Lawrence, and it's a cute sitcom, and people miss that. And, like, at first I was like, this is going to be stupid. Why are we just playing on this nostalgia factor? And I watched it, and it's a good show. It's enjoyable. It plays into the fact that you like these people, and you like this format, but it's not, like, annoying or derivative.
She watched 4 seasons in a week and a half.
I did. I really did.
Wow.
Yeah. But so my point is, like, I think that you either have to go the route of Splat where you're like, you know what, here's the show. Like, you want to feel the nostalgia. We can't do anything better than giving you what you
Right.
had.
Right.
That's what you want. Or you have to just be like, okay, you liked these actors from that time. Well, here they are in a new show, but we're not going to pretend that it's anything other than just them doing another show.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, like, doing the Splat, I don't think it would really work if you created, like, a Netflix-style service, because it's only just those same shows all the time. And, yeah, you can add more, but who's going to want to pay a monthly fee for that? So, like, I think they would have to do something like that. Maybe use these characters in a new way. I mean, obviously, cartoons are different. You can't really do that. But,
Right.
Yeah, they could use maybe some of these old 90s actors, bring them back from who knows what they're even doing anymore. And
Oh, I just thought of another one. Kablam.
that would be really good.
Yeah, I love that show. Well, so nostalgia and reboots work when, number one, it's not a reboot and you're just going, hey, you really like these shows? Watch them again.
Right.
And I guess it works when you're taking the original thing and trying to do something new with it. And kind of you're using the nostalgia to tap into an existing fan base. But what you're doing with the nostalgia is still something creative.
Yeah, it has to be. I think the point is that it has to be, like, different enough, because Girl Meets World is just like...
I was just going to say, it's the perfect example of not doing either of that.
Right.
Right.
Girl Meets World is like, hey, remember how you like Boy Meets World? So Corey Matthews is still around, and so is Sean Hunter, and let's just try to make the exact same show awkwardly and reference it a lot. Also, Mr. Feeney is in the subway.
Is he like a homeless person?
No, it bothers me so much. They're not in Pennsylvania like the original show. They're in New York, and in the subway station by their house is like a giant motivational learning poster about how school is cool, and it's got George Feeney on it. And it makes no sense because nobody would know who that is in New York. And it's just there. And it was in the first episode because Corey has this moment with it at the end of the first episode where like he sees Mr. Feeney actually in front of it. And that's it was a nice little moment.
I cried.
But then they could have changed it. It didn't have to be that anymore, but it's still that. And every time
I mean, how many people on billboards and stuff do you actually know? So like, I don't.
Well, the thing is,
like
Jared, if you saw a billboard that was like, it's cool to stay in school, would you expect like adults that are dressed like teenagers and trying to look hip? Because that kind of makes sense. Or would you expect like a random old man? Like,
I would hope it's a random old man. That'd be hilarious.
It makes Justin
He knows
very
what the
angry.
kids like.
Yeah, Jared. Well, we were just talking about that. Jared's really in tune with
Oh yeah, kids are dumb.
youngins. With youths.
With the youths.
What I'm wondering is, will the youths think that NASA TV will be cool to watch? That's what I want to know. Do they want to look up there in space in 4K and see all the great beyond of nothingness?
I think this is going to be as much as I love NASA, and I think it would be really cool to see, like, you know, really, really high resolution images from the International Space Station. I think this is going to be about as popular as HD DVD was.
I don't know.
I think this is going to be really popular with people who are stoned.
I was just thinking that. Like, can you imagine if it's a full-time TV station that's nothing but 60, you know, like full frames per second, 4K from the space station, maybe with some like nice classical music in the background. You know, just you've had a long day.
Yeah.
Right, just put it on and just like Earth.
Literally space out.
Exactly.
The thing though is like 4K... The whole 4K thing just, I guess, I'm just going to keep up my role on this podcast. It bugs me. 4K, the whole 4K concept bugs me.
Here we go.
Oh yeah, good resolution. I hate it. Ugh, it's the worst.
4K,
right? More definition?
4K,
No, thank you.
4K is designed for being seen at a certain distance on a certain size display, something that cannot be created in the traditional living room space. So you're buying a 4K TV and it's displaying in 4K,
What are you basing
and you
that
can't.
on? What are you basing that on?
This was something that I read. It was an article that I read when I was working at a tech company that was just exploring 4K computer monitors. But the resolution is largely dependent on the distance you are from the screen when it comes to 4K. And the bigger the screen, the higher. That's what I read. That's what I came to understand from it.
They're a bunch of fools.
They're a bunch of fools.
You can 4K. You can experience a lot, even though you're still close to 4K resolution. I mean, it's not like there are ideal sitting distances for every type of resolution, but I mean, it's not like you have to have a 60-inch screen and be like 35 feet away for it to be ideal. You can still get a lot out of it being like 3 feet in front of like a 20-foot
I would like to
screen.
point out that as much as Justin is complaining, and he does this every time we see any kind of a 4K screen when we're out and about, also, when we stand in front of it, he's like, this doesn't make any difference, this is stupid. And then he pauses and he's like, this looks really nice. This looks nice, I like this.
4K is sexy. I'm not saying we ever need to go above 4K, but 4K is gorgeous.
You know, they're already working on 5K.
Do we need to go?
They have 11K.
I just actually, I looked up 4K on Wikipedia, and one of the suggested articles to read next was 8K.
Samsung,
Just putting that out there.
I think Samsung's working on 11K resolution for phones, which is super dumb. That's unnecessary.
Well, so here's my question: is like, you know, Apple with the Retina screen, And we've already hit a point where our screens have pixels that are so small our eye can't pick them out. So once you've hit a point where your eye can't see the individual pixels, adding more pixels is not going to change the way your eye perceives the picture.
But that's not always the point of it. The point is you can have more detail.
More pixels.
You can do a lot more.
The point isn't to change the way it looks.
It affects the way it looks, but it's at a certain point, yeah, you can't really see, like after 60 frames a second, your eye can kind of not, like we can see over 60 frames a second, but you're not going to notice that much after 60 frames. But they can still do it. It can still add a lot to video games and movies, and video in general. Stuff that may not be readily apparent, but it's tiny things that allow them to do more. It's basically a bigger space to work within when you're creating something. It's not always like, I didn't notice the huge difference. At a certain point, we're getting to the point where if you put like a 4K resolution versus like a 1080p 60 frame a second resolution next to each other, yeah, you may not right away notice the differences, but there's a lot more that can be done within that larger resolution that can't be done at that smaller resolution.
Well, like what? I don't know.
I don't really have a good example that would.
I mean, you're not an engineer, so like you don't have to know. I'm just
no, but I think that Jared's making sense in that when you're creating content, being able to get down to the finest detail possible is beneficial.
Well, but no one's stopping you from creating content with millions of pixels. You still have to render it down to something that, like, I don't know.
The bigger thing is, not everybody has. I would like to watch this NASA channel, but I'm not going to go out and buy a 4K television to do it. Why don't you make it so that it can be watched? Since it's a streaming thing, like you need 13 megabytes per second internet connection to stream it to your TV or monitor in the first place. And that's not hard nowadays with most high-speed internet. But, if it's streaming anyway, why can't it adjust quality for my monitor or television so that I can watch it? Why do I have to go and drop $800-900 on a 4K capable?
I mean, it costs
television?
them money to do that. So, I mean, it's probably one of those things like we're just going to stream in 4K and not invest in dropping it down to something else.
But then are they seeing a return on investment from the companies that are selling 4K televisions?
Maybe. I don't know.
If it's ad based.
Well, but the point is they already have a 4K camera built in. Like that, it's not like they were like, oh, hey, 4K companies, let's all get together and blah, blah, blah space.
Here, just to go back to my other thing real quick, I guess the point I was getting at, like 4K screens they have more pixels. More pixels means more information. So they can, it's such a, if you had a video game running at a 4K resolution at 60 frames a second versus a 1080p game running at 60 frames a second, it would be night and day. But like you may not notice it with television as easily. But like if something when it comes to like video games or something computer generated, it makes a humongous difference. So I guess I'm talking more from a video game stance than television. I'm not as familiar with television that standards and whatnot as I am with video games.
I don't know if I've ever seen a 4K like TV in action yet, so I'll save my judgment.
I mean, I've seen curved display televisions, and I always thought curved.
Oh, that's just stupid.
Here's the thing: I thought
that was awesome.
I was about to say I thought curved displays were stupid also, and then I saw one.
Yeah,
and
this was another one where we're walking into the store and he's like, "Curved displays are so dumb. I hate them. They're so terrible, and they're everything that's wrong with television."
My nose was stuffy that day,
and he was doing his curmudgeonly bit, and then we stand in front of it, and he was like, "Oh, I want one of these. This is nice."
My jaw hit the floor.
Are you sure it wasn't just because it was a really nice new TV? Because I was reading from like reporters who went to CES who were like, we asked them why they curved the TV and no one gave us an answer.
All I know is that they showed one side, like side by side, just a standard high def flat screen TV and this curved display LG TV showing the same images on loop.
Yeah.
And like, the curved display television, which probably was a 4K display,
right.
it felt like I was standing and looking out a window.
The cool thing for me, when my friend has a curved display, and again,
you don't have friends.
Referencing, well, this friend I made up, he has a curved display, and it is 4K, and playing video game, again, I'm going to reference video games because, I mean, I don't know how much it actually adds to a video watching experience, but when it comes to games, there is this little extra element of, first of all, it's a wider resolution, so you get more on the sides, but when it's curved, it's actually kind of in your periphery. I mean, depending on how far away you're sitting to some extent, but I mean, we were playing Dirt 3 on his PC, so we're sitting within a few feet of it, and it's in my periphery, and it just adds more immersion. I mean, having VR is going to change this, but having that display kind of added a little bit more immersion to what I was doing. Having that little extra of what I could see in the gaming environment. Yeah, I'm just seeing more trees and cars beside me and stuff like that, but it added more to the experience, and it was pretty awesome.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, Jason, if you ever have a chance just to like go into like a Best Buy or, you know, and just to see one of these displays. I don't know if they have those where you live. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of Best Buy. It's a big box electronics retailer. I
mean, here at Ice Station Alpha, we don't have much.
I can put 3 chairs in a curved formation.
I can see the wood in my periphery. It's
impressive.
It's hurting Justin to say this, just so everybody knows.
Yeah. But it's the future. This is the future. We live in the future. And what better proof that we live in the future than that the Hyperloop is here?
Well,
am I going to get away with this one? Are people going to let me get away with this one?
I don't know what you're referencing, but Elon Musk has this new thing called the Hyperloop.
Well, the big news isn't that he invented the Hyperloop a while ago, but put the plans for it just out there. He didn't patent it or anything. He said, hey, here's this awesome idea I made for a train that could go from Los Angeles to San Francisco in like half an hour. So whoever wants to build it, go crazy. And someone has finally decided, yeah, let's try to build it.
I mean, obviously, from the looks of the picture, the pods in the Hyperloop are quite large. But I just immediately thought of the tubes from Futurama, where you just climb in and you hit a button and you're just, it's, you know, pneumatic. It just sucks you up and spits you out at your destination.
Which would be cool, but this is not really like that. I don't know. I don't think this is that big of a deal. I put it in here to just kind of find out what you guys think about it. So for those who don't know, Hyperloop is basically kind of like a bullet train of sorts. It's basically you're in this capsule that looks like a bullet that would be shot through a tube to get you to different destinations, like Jason said, from, I don't know, Los Angeles to San Francisco in like 30 minutes, which I don't know what that distance normally is, but apparently it's not a 30-minute drive or whatever.
No, not even a little bit.
So I made the drive once, and it's like, I mean, I think at least 12 hours on the road, maybe more like 6 to 9 if you're trucking it. We were touristing, but it's like a long
So you weren't
trip,
going
yeah.
750 miles an hour?
We were not going 750 miles per hour in our rental car, no.
I mean, here are my thoughts about this. I actually have a lot of thoughts on the Hyperloop.
Everybody sit back.
Everybody get ready for my thoughts on the Hyperloop. No, first of all, this is an infrastructural nightmare. They're like, we're going to be able to get everywhere. The world is about to get so much smaller, everyone. No, it's not. Because this would be, to try to fit this into like pre-existing big cities to make these connections would be extremely difficult.
Teresa, they have to take up space to put the Hyperloop in. That space is no longer part of the world. It's taken up. The world has thereby become smaller because that space is no longer available.
I'm ignoring you. So
that's
no,
for
seriously,
the best.
It's yeah. That's why we're married.
I'm a happy man.
So no, it's an infrastructural nightmare. 100%, because either they're gonna have to try to figure out where to put this in existing cities, or they're just gonna create like other stops.
New cities.
Right, well, yeah, like it'll be like, okay, so we can't get close to New York, but here you are far away from New York. So here's the middle of New Jersey, guys. Have fun with that.
You can go from Poughkeepsie to Albany and back.
Yeah, ooh. And also, like, you know, we still don't know what happens to the human body if it's traveling at 750 miles an hour.
What about airplanes?
Well, no, we do. I mean, airplanes run around like usually around 500 to 550, 570. That's how fast an airplane goes. But
that's a pretty big difference. That's
well,
you know,
fighter jets.
Yeah, fighter jets go faster than that.
Space rockets when they go up into outer space.
But the whole
they're going at like 18,000 miles an hour.
We still don't know what that does, because that's why they did that whole sleep study where they made those people lay in beds for 3 months to be like, so what happens to your body? I don't know.
But you're not going to be laying in beds. Don't go 750 miles an hour.
No, do you not know what I'm talking about? That NASA did this study because they were like, we don't actually really know what happens to your body when you're like up in space.
I thought that was to study the effects of like zero gravity and all the crazy radiation you get when you're up there. I mean,
regardless,
point
none of
remains,
this has anything to do with the Hyperloop.
It's a nightmare. I mean,
it does have something to do with Hyperloop.
No, I think Terry's making a great point, like, because this isn't something that runs on normal... Too late. It's not something that runs on normal train rails. They have to build this giant vacuum-sealed tube that goes all the way from Los Angeles to San Francisco to get it to work, just between those 2 points. So, like, it's not even, like, just putting in a new train station. You have to put these, like, massive tubes, and they have to be perfectly sealed for hundreds of miles.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it would be an infrastructural nightmare, but, like, and even so, like, 750 miles an hour isn't that impressive. Like, that's not fat. Like, when we send rocket, I'm not saying shoot rockets around the Earth like that, but when we send rockets into space, they're going at, like, 17,000 miles an hour or something ridiculous.
I really don't want to have to drive from Cleveland to Columbus. I'm just going to take a rocket.
Yeah, well, that's actually been proposed, but it's too expensive to shoot rockets like that. But it's like, that's not that fast. It would still take, like, planes are only going like 570. I think that's max if I remember right. But like, that's not that fast for them to. It would still take you basically 3 hours to get across the entire United States, where normally it would take like 4 hours. That's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, to somebody who needs to save that extra hour,
I guess. But this is a lot of money and a lot of
bigger thing is
headache.
I think the bigger thing for it is smaller trips. Like, you know, you hop on Amtrak to go from Philly to New York, and it takes you an hour and a half. Well, with this, it would be like going from one subway stop to the next.
But there's so much fun when you ride in a Greyhound and stuff. I don't see why you would want to get rid of that.
Well, now the only difference is when you sit next to that smelly spurt person, you're actually vacuum sealed in with them.
Did we ever talk about the fact that I got locked in a Greyhound bathroom bus one time on the way back from E3?
No, I think I remember you vaguely telling me this, but I don't. Please elaborate.
Well, it's not a super exciting story, but we stopped in.
You sure?
I can't remember what it was. It might have been Philadelphia or something. I was taking a Greyhound back from Ohio. I live in Pennsylvania, and I think we stopped in maybe Philadelphia and or York or something. And I had to go to the bathroom, so I was going to stay on the bus, so I just ran to the back of the bus. I went in there. While I was in there, someone else came back to try to get in there, and the handle broke off. And then they didn't tell anybody that I was in there or that the handle broke off. So I'm just stuck in this bathroom, like shaking the door till eventually the bus stops and the bus driver comes back, tries to open the door, can't get it open. Essentially, I was in there for a little over 2 hours, just standing in this disgusting bathroom. And like, I'm calling like anyone, like trying to get in touch with the bus driver up front. Like I'm calling Greyhound to see if they can get in touch with the bus driver or something. It's like, I'm stuck in your bathroom right now. Can you get me out of here?
They probably thought you were just prank calling them.
But what jerk goes back, breaks the handle off, and is like, I'm just going to sit down. I think that's for the best.
I'm sure it's fine.
I don't want to get caught. I didn't want to get caught.
Right.
But, no, wait. So when the bus driver came back, how did they get you out?
He was just like, oh, hold on, dude. Well, I'm going to get you out or something.
He called
and he just,
you dude?
Yeah, he was pretty late. He was pretty chill. And
did you ride it like in all those like cartoons and sitcoms? Did you end up taking the bus all the way to the end of the line and then they had to take you home, or was it like your stop when they found you?
No.
When they found me. Yeah, like he was fossilized in there.
No. Eventually someone, I guess someone went up and told the bus driver, like, hey, there's a guy stuck in the bathroom for like an hour and a half. Could you maybe get him out of there?
It's not that I want him out. It's just that I've been trying to sleep and he's making so much noise.
He keeps shaking his door.
Love if that's what it was. Like, there's a ghost in your bathroom?
Yeah, they didn't tell me but he just came back. He just stopped the bus and eventually came back. And it's always that awkward. I mean, not that anyone else on the Greyhound like has, well, whatever. But like I walk out and everyone's kind of looking at me like, Oh, you ruined our whole drive because you got stuck in the bathroom. It's like, sorry.
What it was that they made a stop and the guy with the handle got off the bus and took the handle with him and the bus driver saw it.
I'm just going to take this.
Oh, man. So you actually got to stay in Howard's hostel.
Yeah.
That's a reference back to anybody who's listened to Between the Pixels.
But you're going to miss out on that great experience if you're riding on the Hyperloop because it's going to be clean and sanitary and nice and,
Well, in theory.
That's just not as
At least
fun.
very fast.
You know what bathrooms are, or whatever. So Salisbury, North Carolina.
Best transition of the podcast yet. Whatever.
So they have the fastest gigabit broadband that is currently available. Now, the reason I brought this up is more so to talk about, I mean, two parts. Like Google Fiber has been showing up in a lot of places, and a lot of people theorize that Google did this to kind of push other companies to, make their internet speed offerings better. And I think we're kind of starting to see this because we have this new company called Fibrant who's coming in with a 10 gig tier, which 10 gigabits down, which is pretty insane. The fact that they're offering now, Google Fiber is currently $700 per month. This Fibrant's coming in, and theirs costs $400 per month. So it's maybe not for a consumer.
Well, is Fiber 700 or 70?
Google Fiber is 70 and Fibrant's is 400. So Fibrant, I think, is going after more the commercial aspect of it. But still, I think we're seeing kind of the payoff of Google Fiber going into areas and kind of pushing companies to bring in faster internet speeds.
I mean, so here in Nashville, Google Fiber is already here. Now, we don't have Google Fiber. What?
Why don't you have it?
Because we're renting this apartment from a company that they provide the internet. So I'm a little ticked off.
Well, we actually almost did choose a different apartment because Justin really wanted Google Fiber and it came.
Yeah, there's one building
standard.
that we almost moved into.
Yeah.
The basic internet provided by the building was Google Fiber. And I would love to have fiber optic internet, but I'm curious to see. I mean, I know it's fast, but I'm curious to see just how fast, because this Fibrant, like they even said, you could download like 20 Blu-ray rips in 2 minutes.
You can torrent so much
at the speeds that they're doing, and it just seems weird that the Salisbury, North Carolina, why do they get good internet? What the heck?
Well, they need test sites for like they when they do this stuff, they don't want to go into like a big metropolitan area and test it out there. They need to test it out kind of in a smaller area. I guess another reason I brought this up, me and Devin were talking about this, like something we've all grown up with, because when we were born, in the time we were born, we all grew up with dial-up. So like we've kind of gone from dial-up to where we are now, and it seems like we're getting closer and closer to a future where speeds aren't going to matter. Like where you're not going to have to worry about tiers. You're not going to have to worry about being in an area that only offers this certain speed. Like in our lifetime, I think it's certainly feasible that everybody can have like a very high internet access connection.
I mean, there's very little in reality. I mean, I'm sure, non-compete and like that, but beyond that, there's no real big barriers to Google just being like, okay, everywhere's getting Google Fiber. It's going to take a while because we have to get it all hooked up. But if Google Fiber came to just about every major internet using area in the United States, $70 a month is not that much for fiber optic internet. And so I agree. I don't think that that's that far fetched. I could see that being the case.
Just talking about dial-up just gives me flashbacks. I'm thinking about when it would take minutes just to download a picture, or like you want a song that's half an hour.
And then it turns out it's the wrong song because fuck Napster.
Yeah, Closing Time by Green Day. They didn't write Closing Time.
Damn it! I'll never forget growing up. A friend of mine, their internet provider was Prodigy, which is one of the first dial-up service providers. And Prodigy's logo, or their icon, was a yellow phone that, you know, it was one of the ones where the receiver rested on the base of the phone and then you'd lift the receiver off the base and then you would dial the numbers on the base. You know what I'm talking about?
A phone?
That's not. Yes, I'm talking about a phone, but most phones have
Justin.
the receiver has the numbers on the phone.
Okay, yes.
Anyway.
Okay.
But this yellow phone that they had next to their computer was the exact same color and style of the icon for Prodigy. And we were only like maybe 6 or 7 years old, but we were certain that this was not a coincidence, that if you had Prodigy, you had to have one of these yellow phones. And somehow the two of them had to correspond with one another for you to get online. And so we would try everything because we didn't know, you know, his parents' password and we didn't have access to, you know, how to get on, but we tried everything to get on the internet, like picking up the phone and clicking things, typing things and dialing numbers on we must have made so many calls to people that were just like, hello. And we were just like punching numbers on the phone. Trying
Is this the internet?
Yeah. Is this how, are you Prodigy? Did we figure it out?
Hello, I'd like internet in here.
It took us like 2 minutes to figure out how to unscramble the Playboy channel, but this took we could not figure out Prodigy to save our lives.
You had to be a prodigy. Wow. Or just know the password.
You have to be a fire starter. There's this band called Prodigy that wrote a song called Firestarter that was really popular during that era. Firestarter.
Anyway, I have to just make a quick comment because this story came from geek.com. And the first thing that really stood out to me was not the story, but that the header, like where you get all your drop-down menus from geek.com, it says Apple, Android, PS4, Science, and Gaming. And I just thought it was really silly that PS4 got its own category and then there was also a game.
Those are just like the trending topics of that week.
Oh, that's not... Okay, I thought
things
that was
that are
like,
kind of popular. Yeah.
Okay, I thought if you clicked on it, it brought... Because they have like the drop downs there. I didn't realize... I was like, that just seems like a terrible organization scheme for a website.
Yeah, we only talk about PS4, Science, and Gaming.
Yeah.
This week on the podcast, Justin looks at websites and opines about how they work without knowing how they work.
Can we let Jason do the introduction for this week?
I think he just did it, so
yeah.
That was the best thing I've ever heard because it's basically my whole life. Oh.
Justin is the worst.
I'm just imagining this podcast where it's like an hour of Justin going like,
so
well,
this now I'm on ask.com.
Right.
And I'm looking, but I don't feel like I'm invited to ask. What is YouTube? There's no tubes on YouTube. What is this? Teresa!
Pick up the Prodigy phone.
Hang up the Prodigy phone, Teresa! What is this? What is
the Googles
this?
won't come through the tubes while you're on the Prodigy phone.
This book
This is probably Teresa's fault.
Why? What is this? Is yeah.
I wondered for a second where you were going with that. Like, I'm looking at this website and I'm looking at their categories at the top of the website. I'm like, okay, Grandpa, what's going on?
And now I'm looking at the left side of the website. We're just going to take some time.
It just has these tabs and I just don't understand how it works. Kids these days.
But I don't like
hour,
it.
For the next
I'm sorry, Justin. You're just gonna have to let us laugh it out a little bit.
Let's just talk about virtuality and how it won its first Emmy, shall we?
Virtuality
And how it was first Emmy. So virtual reality recently won its first Emmy for a... Now, I wasn't aware that Sleepy Hollow was even a TV show, so I don't know what's going on. But Fox created this Sleepy Hollow virtual reality experience and it was premiered at San Diego Comic-Con, where essentially users would put on the virtual reality headset, and the main character of Sleepy Hollow, I think he's the main character, would walk up and like cut your head off, and your head would fall off in virtual reality and all this stuff. You can check out the video that's going to be linked in the show notes if you want to see it. But so it won an Emmy, which I think is pretty big news, not because I think the Emmys really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I think this is pretty important, not to get on a huge tangent about virtual reality, but I think it's important that it gets this kind of recognition because a lot of the success of something like virtual reality depends on not the enthusiasts who are already bought into it and who are happy that it exists, but it's the mainstream people who don't really care about it, and like this is a way to get them to care about it, and even seeing that they've been recognized and received an Emmy.
You got to keep in mind that these are the juried Emmys, and they're awarded outside of the Emmy broadcast, and they're not even, I don't think they're even mentioned in the broadcast.
No, they aren't. It's not going to be on the actual broadcast, but
a specific Emmy for interactive media.
But I guess the important part is like,
hold on. Does that mean they've been giving out an Emmy every year for some random video game, and I just haven't heard about it?
No, they were saying that they don't actually even have to give them out every year. It's like one year they might be like, there are 5 that we think deserve an Emmy,
and then
so
they all get an Emmy. Yeah.
And then some years they're like, you're all shit, no Emmys for you, and then no one gets them.
So now that we've totally derailed Jared's point, Jared, what's your point?
Jared, go ahead.
Oh, my only point was that a ton of people may not see this, but it's kind of a recognition by if you want to consider them kind of like the press or the curators or whatever you want to say. Even if they're not into it, if they're saying like, hey, this isn't some dumb, gimmicky, childish, stupid thing, if they're saying, hey, this is a technology that can really offer neat experiences, I think that's going to help translate. Because earlier in this year, we saw that Time article magazine with Lucky Palmer on it on the front of Time magazine, looking like a complete dork, basically making VR look pretty stupid. And so I don't know, it's nice to see something like this because I think the press and kind of the people who give out Emmys, whoever they are.
Did you call him Lucky Palmer?
Yeah, that's his name.
No, his name is Palmer
Lucky, whatever. Dude, that's not even a real name. No one's last name is Lucky. That guy's a liar.
Also, Lucky Palmer is a way cooler name than Palmer Lucky.
Yeah, I agree. Lucky Palmer.
Lucky Palmer's a really cool golfer.
No, I think Jared has a good point, though. I mean, I think that, I think on the one hand, it does sort of, like, lend an air of legitimacy to it, to be like, oh, you have, this is acknowledged by the Emmys, but then again, the Emmys, and it's...
I don't think the Emmys actually matter,
Emmy. Right. And not a fake Emmy, but it's like...
Is it a daytime Emmy, or is it a nighttime?
It's just, like, worse than the daytime Emmys, although I think the daytime Emmys are the superior Emmys, but the point is, like, it does lend an air of legitimacy to it and like an acknowledgement from the larger entertainment community that VR is a real thing, but it's like kind of a half-assed acknowledgement because of the nature of the award it got.
But it's better than not acknowledging, I think.
Yeah.
I guess it also goes to show that there are finally people making content for VR headsets that's like somewhat worthwhile too.
That's the thing. I don't feel like, I mean...
Or is this just like a really fancied up tech demo and a bunch of like Hollywood bigwigs were like, I've never seen VR before. This is amazing.
That's sort of what it was. Because like when you say worthwhile, I think it's worthwhile in that this content shows what VR can do. But the actual content itself was literally, they took the show Sleepy Hollow and the guy who played Ichabod Crane, and you put on the VR goggles and he walks up to you and says, hey, the Headless Horseman is here. And then the Headless Horseman shows up and cuts your head off, and you experience your disembodied head falling to the ground. And then the Headless Horseman picks up your head off the ground by your hair. And that's sort of the entire experience.
But I don't think, like, we're not the important audience. Like, we're enthusiasts about this stuff. Like, we're going to buy into it. We're going to try it out. Like, this is kind of old hat, so to speak, for us. But to someone who's a fan of Sleepy Hollow and they hear like, oh, there's this neat little VR thing that you can go do, go stand on this weird bridge and get your head cut off. people are going to be into that. It's a little gimmicky thing that they can go in there and see. And I don't think it was poorly done. It just not super impressive to us, but I think to the larger audience who do matter more than the enthusiasts are really the ones that need to buy into it more than we do. So I think it worked in that sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree. So, but no, I agree. I think that it's important that other people see the value in virtual reality entertainment and the immersiveness of it. But then it also has its shortcomings. I mean, like the other experience, the kitchen game that was at E3 using the Morpheus headset from Sony. I mean, one of the guys who reviewed it was saying that, you know, when the avatar's head that you were seeing through got pulled backwards and was looking up, even though your head was not looking up, it was super disorienting and gave like this terrible sense of vertigo. And when you hear those kinds of things, it's like, I don't really know if I want, you know, like forcibly induced vertigo.
I think that's a more problem of the developers than it is like an inherent issue with VR.
Is it though?
Well,
Because
they don't.
Like,
they should know not to develop it that way.
Right. Well, but just because, like, all of your, you know, when it comes to balance and things like that, it's a lot of different systems working together. It's, you know, your feet feeling the floor, it's your eyes seeing the horizon, it's your inner ear. And, you know, you get dizzy when you spin around because your inner ear says you're moving, but your eyes say you're not. So what happens when your eyes say all kinds of things, but you're just sitting in a chair, so all the rest of your body is giving you mixed signals.
And that's the key problem. That's one of the key problems with VR and with, you know, like the Kinect and the Move, in that you're supposed to be so immersed in the motion of everything, but none of them have really solved the problem that you're not moving. So like
that's not true. That's not true at all.
Well,
like
the
E3
Kinect
had
and
a
the Move,
bunch of demos this year.
But what I'm saying is, you, Jared, when you have this headset on, me, you know, your character in the game may be moving, so it's immersive in that you're seeing through their eyes, but you, the person playing the game, are not moving. And
no, that's not true, though.
They came out. So how do they handle
the E3? There are a number of demos where like you have to think that like there's going to be a lot of bad VR where they take traditional video games and just throw VR into it. That's what you gotta think of it differently. Like people need to specifically create VR experiences, and at E3 they had a lot of stuff like this where you are physically moving. Where
but
like
how did they
your character's head isn't.
How did they compensate for varied living room space? And
well, that's
going to
be
and stuff.
I mean, that's different from game to game, but there were a number of different ones, which there's too much to kind of go over right now. But
yeah.
But there are plenty of experiences where you are and your head's not getting jerked around the game, but you're physically having to move your head to the right or to the left, and you know it requires you to do that. That's how a good virtual reality game is built. If like this demo for that kitchen one, they jerk your head back in game, but you're physically still there. Well, that's just stupid. Like why? That's just poorly designed. That's not an inherent flaw of VR. That's a flaw of the developers not knowing how to use the technology correctly.
They were probably kids.
Yeah, kids are dumb.
Or chairs. Chairs aren't good at coding. They don't have fingers.
I just as a kid who grew up playing Dactyl Nightmare, as like if you guys don't know what that is, it's a terrible VR game from the 90s.
Oh yeah, I remember that. You had to go to the mall to play it.
Right. I loved. Well, I hated it, but I also loved it at the same time because I wanted VR to be a thing so bad. But that game sucks so much. Like this is.
It did, but it was so cool. But it was like $8 per play.
Yeah, and it was so cool, but it was so terrible. It was so janky, but at the time it was pretty cool.
I mean, it was the best there was.
Yeah, but now that we're actually at a point where VR isn't a joke, and I guess I'm just excited to see that it's getting some positive press, you know, so to speak.
I didn't play Dactyl Nightmare, but I remember some of the games that Dave and Buster's used to have. There was like a tank or a war simulator game where you lowered this headset over your head and it spun on a 360-degree axis, and you had the controls and you could spin around and look 360 degrees in your environment and attack oncoming planes, but I looked up Dactyl Nightmare, and it was clearly, this game was, leagues above it because of the just technology of the time getting better. So I never played Dactyl Nightmare, but I imagine it was quite the experience for what you were getting at the time.
I mean, right. It kind of, in retrospect, it was awful, but it kind of was life changing. Like there was like nothing else like it.
Yeah.
What did you do? You just hunted pterodactyls?
Yeah.
Well,
you put on this giant clunky headset and you stood on this platform and you had a gun in one hand. And when you turned your head, it turned your body. And these pterodactyls like swooped down and attacked you, and you shot them with your gun.
Well, there was a multiplayer version where it's like you could play Capture the Flag against other people.
Except it was Capture the Pterodactyl.
It was pretty terrible. But so that's VR, I guess. Does anyone have anything they want to briefly... We got to wrap this up. Does anyone have anything they want to briefly talk about that they experienced this week that's worth note?
I know, Jared, you and I talked a little bit about the whole bullshit with Destiny. What's going on with Destiny? I thought that was kind of crappy and worth mentioning, that if you don't buy the Taken King expansion, you get locked out of content that was previously available, given that you paid $60 for the original game.
Oh, I thought you were talking about how Destiny's a bad game top to bottom. Just kidding. The combat's really good. Actually, I heard with the new improvements of the Taken King, stuff like that, it's gotten a lot better, like mission structure wise. But yeah, that is nonsense. Stuff like that, I wonder, is it a fault of, like, is this how Bungie actually is? Or is this because they went with Activision?
And of course, you're never going to find the real answer to that.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if it is also like a bold new vision in bringing AAA games to this generation of consoles, because like the graphics keep pumping up, so it keeps taking more time and money to make a full game. Maybe they figure they're trying a new business model where the game is focused on multiplayer, so why not get that rolled out first? And, over the course of 3-4 years, we keep adding stuff, we keep improving stuff.
But that's still different, because basically what they did this time was, okay, you bought Vanilla Destiny 1.0 for $60, right, and you got A through Z. Now we've added some new stuff for $40, and you have to buy that. But if you don't buy that, you can keep playing Vanilla Destiny, but some of that stuff you paid $60 for is no longer available to you.
Yeah, now you only have A through D.
Now you only have like A through H, and then J through Z, or I through Z are locked away, even though some of that stuff is stuff that you previously were able to play, because they got rid of all of the high-end strikes. They altered what was accessible in the multiplayer Crucible. So it's like you're playing such a watered down version of Destiny that you basically are, if you really, really like Destiny, you're forced to pay another $40 to continue playing the things you were playing before, even if you didn't want the Taken King right away, just to be able to play the Nightmare Strikes and stuff like that. And that's not a good model if that's the future model for gaming, then we're all in trouble.
I don't think it's a future model, but it's probably for future model for Destiny.
I mean, that aspect of it definitely, well, I don't know. I don't know enough about the technical side, but that has always been my thought, is that, the initial Destiny we all paid $60 for, we weren't really buying a game as much as we were buying a platform.
Yeah, that would have been nice if they did it that way, but Destiny 2, that's coming out.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. They're making multiple Destinies. You're gonna have to buy multiple, like, you're not buying a platform. It's not like World of Warcraft and then you buy expansions. It's, here's Destiny 1, and this is Destiny 1 content, and then you buy Disc 2, which is Destiny 2, and that's Destiny 2 content.
That's disappointing. I thought they were doing it like World of Warcraft.
No, that'd be nice if they did, but unfortunately not. Anything else?
Don't drink hand sanitizer, kids.
Unless you want to get drunk.
Yeah.
Get wasted.
Crunk on some Purell.
Yeah.
Hot tip from the Implied Nerdity: drink hand sanitizer.
Right.
Yeah, great. That's what we need.
Hey, we didn't tell you to do it. We just told you it exists.
This episode brought to you by Purell and Salmonella.
And the number for poison control.
Yeah.
Which is...
I don't know. Look it up. Look it up while you're...
Please don't
Look it up if you just drank hand sanitizer. Look it up quick. Time is of the essence.
The chairs
Thanks for
need me
tuning in
back.
to episode 7 of Implied
Is
Nerdity.
this episode 7?
I thought this was episode 6.
I have
Is it
no,
6?
no, this is 7. This is 7.
Just record both.
Gosh.
Watch it be like
We're in the
episode
single digits and I can't
Thanks for
remember.
tuning into this episode of this podcast.
8.
Yeah, we don't know what it is, but I'm sure you do, and that's all that matters. Thanks for tuning in. We are Implied Nerdity. You can check us out at thegrownupgeek.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or a number of other platforms for podcasts. If you have any questions or comments, any feedback, or any topics you want us to talk about, email us podcast at thegrownupgeek.com. We have a Facebook and a Twitter and a Pinterest and some other stuff. You can find all that info at thegrownupgeek.com. Justin, what about that book club?
No.
All right, goodbye.
No, no, at this point, we're almost done with the first month of the book club.
Read fast.
Yeah, if you can read super fast and you want to participate, pick up a copy of Ernest Cline's Armada. If you don't think you're going to be able to get through it before the end of the month, then don't worry. We are going to be doing this once a month with different books each month. So if you keep tuned into the website and our social media, or you listen to the first episode of the Book Club podcast, we will be revealing what the next book is on October 1st. So, if you want to participate, like I said, read Ernest Cline's Armada, send any questions, or thoughts that you had that you want to share to the email address that Jared just shared. And, that will let us know what you think so that we can discuss it on the podcast. And, it should be a good time. So fun stuff.
Fun stuff indeed.
Do you have any emailed in questions currently?
Jason, one of them, somebody wants to know what you call your underwear.
Your panties. Jason, what's the name of your panties?
Stop!
I call mine Jeff.
Well,
Y'all are gross.
Jeff would call his panties Jeff.
What?
You heard me. Thanks for tuning in. The end. Cut it. This is over. We out.
Carpet is made from fabric. That's an interesting fact.
Do we really know where carpet comes from? Tonight at 11.
What your kids are doing with carpet tonight at 11.
What your kids are doing with carpet will blow your mind.
Yeah.
Hey,
And what you need to know about
you want to come over for a carpet and chill?
I didn't even know that was a thing for like the longest
That's what
time.
I was gonna say. I just found out about this like last week.
Yeah, me too.
Actually.
It was probably last week as well.
I was talking to Jason and Fewer about it, and we were talking because it's really like all these parents are freaking out about Netflix and chill or whatever.
Wait, can you explain to me first, like, is this something that kids are using to code for sex or something? Because I thought it meant just...
No, it basically Netflix and chill. Apparently,
Just hook up.
it just means it's sex. It means sex, but what it means is you're gonna come over, we're gonna watch Netflix, and then we're gonna have sex.
Yeah, but I thought that was just for like not kids.
Well,
Like I thought
What
that's
do you mean
something that
for-
like some guys like, yo, dude, I'm gonna go Netflix and chill with my girl or something like that. Like it wasn't.
oh
It wasn't like a
Tinder.
kid. Yeah.
no, it's not really kids. It's
Well,
teenagers.
okay, I
You're
say-
not having,
I'm-
6-year-olds.
Okay, anyone
What's
under
that
18 is a kid in my mind. Like when I say kid, that's what I mean. Or anyone younger than me is a kid, basically. But, like 16-year-olds saying like, Mom, I'm just gonna go to Sarah's house just to watch Netflix and chill or whatever.
Yeah, but that's basically what it's code for. But here's the thing: maybe I'm missing the part. Like maybe it is just code for sex. Like, hey, come over and let's have sex. But if it's really like, hey, come over and we'll watch Netflix and then we'll screw around. I mean, how is that all that different from like when we were younger, just being like, hey, you want to come over and watch a movie? Yeah, of course I'll come over and watch a movie. But I also know that I'm probably going to get some in the process.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess what parents are upset that that's kids are using that for like a code name.
Not even that they're upset that they're using it. It's just like, now you know.
Okay.
Well, that's okay. Apparently, kids are like drinking hand sanitizer now. That was the newest.
Nah,
like,
kids
weird
are fucking idiots.
Thing I read.
Wait,
they were like,
what?
Be careful. Yeah.
Why?
Because
they have to. They got to get all the germs out of their
They
throats.
just can't drink cough syrup and get a robo
it's how you
trip
get
like
rid of.
everyone else.
It's how you get rid of. Strep throat. You drink hand sanitizer. You drink Purell.
Yeah,
no, they're distilling. I think they're distilling Purell because what they're doing is I think they're like freezing it or something. And they're getting the alcohol out of it.
They're doing something with it.
But regardless, it's fucking like isopropyl alcohol.
Isopropyl alcohol.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, just, that's how you weed out the weak from the strong.
Guys, just raid your parents' out.
The dumb kids drink the hand sanitizer and they don't make it to 5th grade.
They think they're going to get drunk off this stuff. I was reading that thing you sent.
What happened?
I'm not listening.
Well, here, finish reading that thing first.
I just read it, which I have something to say about that in a second. But they were trying to get drunk off of this because it had isopropyl out. All right, here's a pro tip for you guys, because for all you
What happened to just huffing off of the whipped cream can?
What?
Yeah, whippets.
Yeah, you never heard of whippets?
No.
That's where you just tilt the nozzle enough that the gas comes out.
Huffing?
Yeah.
It's like that, except you're inhaling. Like, yeah, you're inhaling, like
Teresa,
breathing it in.
I said, whatever happened to huffing off the whipped cream can? You said, what? Then Jared said whippets. You said, what? Then I explained a whippet, and your response was, so huffing? Yes, Teresa.
Nope, that's not it.
Okay, yeah, no. I found this news story, though. It's that there's been a 400% rise in children drinking hand
So it went from
sanitizer.
1 kid to 4.
That's stupid. That is real dumb. First off,
Yeah,
there's cough syrup if you want to do that. Secondly, all you have to do is get my dad works in like drug and alcohol stuff, and he's a druggie.
I thought you were just gonna say drugs.
My dad's a drug lord, and he gets people in there like homeless alcoholics who they would get drunk.
Drugs.
Yeah, he kills them, and no, but he would like these people because they couldn't afford. I mean, beer's pretty cheap if you get crappy stuff, but to get drunk real fast, real cheap, they would buy a loaf of bread and get some, this crap, what is this crap? 91% isopropyl alcohol, and they would pour it through the bread, and by the time it soaked down all through the bread, they would take out all the wet bread and just drink what's left because it would filter it out, and it's just like pure alcohol, and they would just get blitzed off their mind. So that's what kids should be doing.
Apparently, you only need to have like 1 ounce. 1 ounce of hand sanitizer is equivalent to 3 shots of tequila.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's what this is. Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about this on the podcast?
You could totally mix this in with like other stuff. You know, like Purple Drank, like Lil Wayne, my man, makes. He does it with cough syrup. That's cough syrup. You have to drink so much cough syrup to get wasted off of that. You might as well just start mixing hand sanitizer in your oatmeal.
After this, well, and then in this article, they're like, apparently a lot of little kids drink it because they get confused because of the bright colors, so they assume they should drink it.
Nice.
And the article is like, just use sanitizing wipes. Kids probably can't drink that.
They'll just suck on them.
Yeah.
Kids are dumb.